All right, says we are live. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? We made it. We thought we were gonna be a little bit late because we couldn't get things started here, but we are live. We hope everyone is doing well. Today we are back once again with another video, couple to couple talk live, and so we're going to be talking about money today, couples and money, families and money, different things. So, do you have anything you want to say?
No, not yet.
I'm here with my sweetheart, Joe Swanson. He's such a sweetheart. He's looking a little rugged, but I love him anyway. He didn't look, y'all. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to spend $200-300 a day to get some clippers. I was gonna cut his hair. I really was. I was gonna cut it, make him look all fine. I mean, it don't take much, but he didn't want to spend that much money. So I agree. $300 was a little bit too much money for a set of clippers and some trimmers, especially during this time. I hope everybody is being safe. I hope you're wearing your masks and your mask and keeping your hands sanitized and all that good stuff. So we're going to jump right in, and I am going to introduce this lovely lady that I met through Facebook. Her name is Tiffany Grant. She is a money coach. And we are just going to ask her to kind of tell us about who she is, what she stands for. So I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany Grant. Everybody, welcome Tiffany.
Hi, hey, thank you so much for having me. Y'all are so cute.
Thank you.
So my name is Tiffany, as you said, and I run Money Talk with Tiff, which is solely based on financial literacy and education. I love to teach people about money. I think more people need to learn about money. So that way, these things that we go through generation after generation don't have to keep perpetuating. The more we know, the more we're able to guard against maybe fraud or people taking advantage of us or things like that. And especially in our demographic, we usually don't have anybody teaching us the right way to deal with money. We usually don't have an Uncle Jimmy sitting at the dining room table that owns this huge business that can just drop gems on us. So that's what I'm here for. I'm here to bridge the gap. And just a little bit of background about me. I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom for now. I am engaged. We were thinking about doing it today, but we'll see. But anyway, maybe after the Zoom, I'll be getting married. No, but I have my master's in business, my undergrad in business. I worked quite a while in HR, which is my background when I was in corporate America. Then I switched over to finance and I worked for a huge firm here in Greensboro. And then I quit there so I can pursue what I really want to do and reach the demographic that I really want to reach. So that's where I am today.
Perfect. Well, congratulations on the engagement.
Thank you.
That's so exciting. And I did see some pictures of your boys, and they are so, so precious.
No, thank
So
you.
precious. You think you're going to have any more?
We were talking about it because he doesn't have any kids.
Oh,
so, yeah. So
yeah, you got one more in you. You got one more in you. So it's so crazy that we're talking about finances, and then how you were saying that especially of our ethnicity, we don't know a lot about finances. I know for me growing up as a young child, my grandparents raised me, and I knew that they had money. I knew that we weren't really like poor, but I do know that we were definitely living paycheck to paycheck. I knew they had some money, saved away, but they were still were still paying on their house and had to refinance their house because of, different things that happened or whatever. But I know for me, when I was in high school, the only thing that they taught us was how to do a checkbook. Like, I don't even use checks anymore, okay? So they didn't tell us about credit. back then. Nothing was spoken about credit back then. So as I grew up and as I had children, I didn't know about credit. I didn't know that, you couldn't get anything or couldn't, get certain things that you want unless your credit was good. And lo and behold, thank God I didn't get into the credit card, thing. I think I got one credit card my whole life. Thank God, that's charged off. Yay! I'm so glad about that. I was not one of those that got into credit card debt. But I know I'm very long-winded.
He's like, okay, wrap it up.
So basically what I'm saying is, I thank God that, and it comes back to him. He doesn't have a lot of credit cards, but he's a saver. So, it works both ways.
And that's important to point out too, because usually in relationships, there's a saver and there's a spender. And if you don't sit together, I guess that's my first point. Definitely have a budgeting conversation at the start of every month. I've already pre-warned my fiance that we will be doing this because in our situation, he's the spender and I'm the saver. So I'm like, okay, we're going to have to sit down. We're going to have to budget out, whatever we spend and agree on it. Because see, what happens is sometimes in marriages, there's one person that does all of the money and one person that does all the budgeting and things like that. And then if that person has it in their head, like, this is what we're going to spend money on, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, and they're dictating to the other person, then it can cause issues because sometimes the other person's like, well, I really want this and I can't get this, and it's because of you. Instead of looking at it like, maybe we need to sit down together, make this together. And then therefore, when an issue comes up, you can point right back to that piece of paper, like, look, this is what we agreed on. And then it, bypasses an argument.
So. Right. I think, am I the saver or you the spender?
Well, I think with us, what I try to teach Erica is how to keep your money separate. By her having her own business and working at a salon, I tell her to keep her money separate because when you put all that money together, it's like you're spending, but you end up using your own money instead of doing it. So with your business money, you keep it separate and everything. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They mix everything in one pot. And I like to have different pots. I like to have my little emergency fund, my bill fund and stuff like that. But that's just me. Everybody have their own way of wanting to budget or how they budget. But I just don't like to do paycheck to paycheck. And when I put myself on a budget, it's not saying that I don't have the money, but I've already hit my limit. And once I hit my limit, then that's it, unless emergency comes up. But other than that, I'm stick to my budget.
And that's important because a lot of people, they do this mental accounting. So they'll say, oh, like at the beginning of the month, they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to spend $20 on restaurants and that's it. I'm not going to spend any more. But if they don't write it do if they don't make it plain, write it down and make it plain, like the Bible says, then, they'll spend 10 one day, maybe 5 another day, maybe 3, and then it adds up really quickly. And then next thing you know, it's the end of the month and they're like, where did all my money go? Well, you ate it all, but you didn't realize it because you didn't write it down. You wasn't tracking it. So when people say, what is the main thing that you can tell people that are trying to get on track with their finances is make sure you have a budget. I don't care how you do it. I don't care what you call it. Some people call it a cash flow, whatever you want to call it, however you want to do it, whether it's a spreadsheet, an app, pencil and paper, it doesn't matter. It just needs to get done because that's why I was able to pay off so much in debt so far and why I was able to make it as a single mom with 2 kids for so long is because I was able to budget and see exactly where my money was going.
So we have a few questions for you.
So a question, what would be If you're just starting off, let's just say you're a lot younger and you're just starting off and you want to budget, but you want to be able to still kind of like have some freedom. How would you recommend if you're just starting a budget? How would you do that?
Well, so I work a lot with budgets. So a lot of my clients are in that stage. And I tell them the first 3 months of doing a budget is not going to be perfect. A matter of fact, it's never going to be perfect. It's a living, breathing document. So keep that in mind. Um, but the first 3 months are going to be the hardest. And the first 3 months is when you actually understand how your cash is flowing. So for the first month, I tell people don't even make a budget per se, just spend like you would normally spend, and then just track everything so you can see where your money's going. Because awareness is the first step. If you don't know what you're doing, how you're spending, then you need to do that first. And then months 2 and 3 are actually making a budget from that first month after you saw, what you did, making a budget from there. So if you're like, oh, I spent $300 that first month, I don't want to spend that much on food. Then month 2, go ahead and knock it down to 200 and see if you can do it. So just start challenging yourself.
Mhm.
I will also say that I always recommend having some type of emergency fund um, so it depends on the situation, but in general, I tell people, I don't know if you all are familiar with Dave Ramsey, but
Mhm.
I get this from him. So have at least that baby emergency fund of $1,000, and then you can start tackling debt and things like that. Because what you don't want to happen is, you start budgeting, you're like, oh, I'm gonna start paying off debt, just going strong on debt, and you don't have anything saved up. You lose your job, you're going right back into that debt again. So have something saved up before you start going hard on anything else. So that way, if the unexpected happens, you won't be right back to square one. So I hope that answered your question.
Did that answer?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we have a few questions. I don't know if we'll get through all of them, but the first one was, of course, what would you say to a potential client when you first meet them? What would be like the first question that you would ask that person?
So the first thing I talk about is goals, because I want to make sure that you have a goal, that I can help you with. Some people are like, well, I need you to just give me an allowance. And I'm like, that's not what I do. you know? Like some people are like, I'll
We
just
want
give
you
you
to
my
do
paycheck. Right? You were like, I'll just give you my paycheck, you pay my bills and just give me an allowance. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Because I also believe the older dies adage that you teach somebody how to fish, you don't fish for them. So I want to teach you how to do the things that you need to do. So that way, if I get hit by a proverbial bus, you're still okay. You're not like, oh, I don't know what to do. Tiffany's not alive. What am I going to do? I don't know how to pay my mortgage, my rent, whatever. Like, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
So we discuss goals. And when I have that goals discussion, I want to know what type of goals you have, whether it's to improve your credit score, buy a house, buy a car, move to a new state, even get a new job, whatever your goals are. I want to look at immediate goals and then also long-term goals. And one thing I help my clients do is develop SMART goals. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's specific, measurable, attainable, um, wait, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. So if you have goals that are set up as SMART goals, then you're more likely to hit them. And then also, I use that as my gauge to see if I'm doing a good job on behalf of my clients. Because if it comes to a point and we set a goal that's realistic, let's say you want to buy a house in 6 months, and we don't hit that goal, then I'm like, okay, what didn't I do to help, or where did we go wrong? You
Mhm.
know? So that is the first thing I talk about. And then we get into the psychology of money, because money is very, very psychological. A lot of times people spend because that's their comfort. That's their escape strategy. You know, the term retail therapy, that's where that comes from, right? So it makes you feel good when you shop because you have that brand new thing. You know, you're able to unbox it, maybe wear it for the first time, and then that feeling goes away, and then you go chase that feeling again. So
Yep.
a lot of times when people are spenders, that's kind of the cycle that they're in. And it can also be the same with savers too, because I fall into this. Like, I love saving money. I hate spending. My fiance gets on me all the time. He's like, Tiffany, now we can buy, like, you should see when I go to when I go to McDonald's with me, the boys, and him. My order is so convoluted, but I do it that way so I can save the most money. Because I'm sitting there. Because they're like, you sure you don't want the meal? I'm like, no, I want this, like different ways because I have a coupon and I want to use my coupon. And, you know, it's very, so sometimes savers can get into that too. So it's not just spenders, but sometimes as savers, we can want to save so much that we don't really enjoy.
Mm.
Like all that time that I was spending in the drive-through line trying to make sure that everything was lined up right. What you want, what you want, what you want. This is how we're going to do it. You know, all of that time. And that time could have been spent maybe talking to my family, playing, you know, dancing, singing with the boys, whatever. But, and the same thing with vacation, because I'm the same way with vacation. Like, and I know that about myself. It's like, I want to save the most money. So I have to get it down to a T. And with that, you know, it kind of prevents you from enjoying life as much as you want. So.
Right. Yeah.
So, so with that being said, like the example you gave, buying a house in 6 months. If that's what a couple tell you, and you've looked at everything, um, and you know that 6 months is not approachable, would you tell your clients that, well, um, or would you actually look at everything and maybe have a suggestion that they should do?
Okay, so let's say for instance, it's you all, and you're like, Tiffany, I want to buy a house in 6 months. I'm like, all right, let's look at the numbers. Let's see if it's doable. If it comes back that it's not doable, I'm not going to set myself up for failure because then at the end of the day, it's going to make me look bad.
Right.
Now, if I run the numbers and everything, and I'm like, okay, it's doable if you cut back $1,000 a month in your expenses, or if you know you do this, that, or the other, and then they're like, okay, I think I can do that. Then I'm like, all right, then it's attainable. But I'm not going to sit there and be like, under these current circumstances, you know, you can make it work if it's not going to work, because that's setting myself up for failure and them up for disappointment. And I don't want that, because if somebody comes to me for help and then I end up disappointing them, then they're not going to look at A, the financial industry the same way, and then B, their finances the same way. They're going to be like, oh, well, Tiffany couldn't help me. It must not be doable. Let me just go back to my old habits.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I never want that to happen. So I try to make sure that things are attainable. Now, if there was an instance, for instance, I had a girl, she had 300 something $1,000 in student loan debt. And I told her, I was like, now this is going to be difficult, you know, especially because you're a new business owner, you know, things aren't really flowing yet. It's going to be difficult. But if you keep the course, we can do it. Now, we would probably have to keep the course for a few years, but, you know, you have to make sure that you're dedicated to that, because that's a big hole and the shovel's not quite big enough yet. So.
Right. Right. Okay. Perfect. So the next one is what are some examples of how a couple can budget money?
Okay. So this kind of goes back to, you know, what I opened with, of course, with the budgeting. Have that budgeting conversation once a month. And then it depends. A lot of times also in relationships, and Dave Ramsey talks about this too, there's the nerd and the free spirit. So there's somebody that loves the numbers, and there's somebody that loves sitting down with the numbers and, you know, crunching everything and making sure everything's good. And then there's the free spirit that's just like, I don't care. Just give me what you need me to just give me what you need me to do and I'll do it. Whatever. So I think it's important to make sure that, like I said, have the conversation together, get buy-in from both parties. So that way it won't turn into an argument or a disagreement down the road. A lot of divorces are because of money. A lot of people spend thousands and thousands on a wedding and they're still paying on it years later, and then they have a fight about that same money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, to me, I feel like money is so important in so many aspects of your life. And the Bible says that it's the love of money is the root of all evil, not money itself.
Amen. Yes.
So don't think that having money conversations and being focused on your money is evil, because it's not. And I think that's one of the things, and I know I'm kind of diverging a little bit, but in our households, I'm talking about us as a people,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to openly have money conversations. The husband and wife don't want to, and then they don't want to talk to the kids about it. I remember when I was little and they're like, oh, that's none of your business, or don't worry about that. They don't talk about how much they make. They don't talk about how much the bills are, things like that. A kid needs to stay in a kid's place. But that's how we keep perpetuating the cycle, because we're not including our kids on these conversations, and we should be. They need to understand that money doesn't grow on trees. They need to understand that you have to work hard to earn money. They need to understand that saving is important as giving, as important as spending. So all of these things need to be taught in the home, because, like you said earlier, school's not going to do it. They
Yeah.
have to.
Exactly. And that is so true. Um, like I say, growing up, I mean, I knew that you had to have money in order to buy things, but I wasn't taught like save some for a rainy day. You know what I'm saying? Don't spend all of your money all at one time. So that's so true what you just said about that. As far as like the budgeting part, as a couple, um, for me, I think Joe is definitely like he has definitely taught me how to budget, taught me how to spend, save, put some away for a rainy day, because before meeting him, I was just jacked up. If I had it, I was gonna spend it. You hear me? And so it's definitely helped me. He's definitely helped me a whole lot with as far as budgeting is concerned. Um, I guess the question I'm saying as far as budgeting, like, um, do you feel that it should be like a minimum amount? Can it switch? Like, how does the budgeting work when one person makes more money and the other person makes less of the money? Like,
So it depends on the couple, right? Because, like, for instance, like I told my fiance, I was like, when we get married, it's all of our money. So it's just going to be a big pool, and we're going to budget from that pool.
mm-hmm.
Now, there are couples that want to keep stuff separate, and that's fine. In that case, what I would do is make sure that, well, it depends on how you want to do it. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. So some couples, they'll say, okay, the person that makes the most pay the biggest bills. And then the one that doesn't make a lot, they pay the smaller bills. So maybe the one that makes the most pays the mortgage or the rent, power, things that are up there in price. And then the one that doesn't maybe pays, I don't know, the water bill, or, some smaller ones. Then some couples do like percentage based. So if you're really nerdy, you can sit there and calculate, what percentage of the 100% each couple is responsible for based on how much they make.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do it that way. So let's say Joe makes more and he makes 70% of the total income of the entire household. So
Mm-hmm.
he should pay 70% of the bills while you pay 30% of the bills. You can do it that way. So there's a bunch of different ways. As far as getting the budget down, you can use spreadsheets. I actually have a budget template for Excel. If anybody needs it, maybe I'll shoot it to you and you can pass it out. There's apps. I personally like Every Dollar. That's by Dave Ramsey. Because it's very simple to use. It connects to your bank account. So all you have to do is drag and drop to your different line items. And so it's very easy to use. There's another one called You Need a Budget, YNAB or YNAB. And you can find that on the App Store. That one's really good as well. If you just want pencil and paper, you can do it that way as well. So there's so many different ways to do this stuff. And that's one thing that I go over with my clients too. Like, are you comfortable with Excel? Do you want to use Excel? Are you more comfortable with an app? Do you need it on the go with you? Or are you disciplined enough to go ahead and put it in when you get home? So it's just a lot of different things that you need to think about when you are starting this process, because like I said, what you don't want is it to not work. Then you get discouraged and then you go back to your old habits.
So with new clients, you just said about discipline, but do you have any clients or talk to them as far as the discipline and being on a budget? It can get frustrating. Um, how do you cope with that when dealing with a client that is struggling?
Okay, so funny thing, I had this couple, and one of them was just very into what I was saying. Like, Tiffany said this is law, this is what we need to do, this, that, and the other. Now, the other half of the couple, they were like, like, I don't want to do that. Who is Tiffany? Why does Tiffany have a say in how we doing our money? Like, that type of thing. So, right. And so they told me that my name had become a curse word in their house. Like, like, don't say the T word. But I think it's important, and that goes back to the buy-in portion, right? Because if you have a couple and one person's really into it, so they start having these meetings by themselves, and then they're just going back and telling the other person, then it's going to end up that situation. That's exactly what happened. The other person never met with me. They were just listening to what the other person said. And so it's like, well, I don't want to do that. Y'all be over there talking. Would you like, that type of thing? So, it goes back into the buy-in. So it's important for couples to make sure that their goals align too.
Yeah, and that they're on the same page.
Right.
At least they meet you, you know what I'm saying? And it's a group effort.
Right. And I mean, I've had situations where clients did not listen to me. Now, granted, it didn't end up good. But like, for instance, I had one lady, she quit her job out of the blue. And, while we were in the middle of getting our stuff together, and I'm like, like, this just changed the whole dynamic. But I was like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to save up this amount, pay this, and don't use any of the rest, right? Well, she called me one day. Oh, Tiffany, I just paid off this, that, the other. And I paid off this, that, and the other, stuff that was not in our plan. So then after a few months, she started running out of money. And I'm like, look, I told you to make sure you do this, that, and the other. Don't go off course, because that's going to mess up everything. You might think that, paying this $200, let's say, medical bill or whatever it was at the time, is going to help you, but it really ended up hurting you in the long run, because we could have worried about that after you secured another job or after you got going in your business and things like that. So the stuff I was telling you to pay were things that were immediate, like needed to get done, because they were, the stuff I didn't tell you to pay is because it's not important right now. Mm-hmm. What's important is making sure you have cash flow to pay your mortgage, to pay, things that keep a roof over your head and food in your belly. Then we can start worrying about the creditors again. So, sometimes I have to have those difficult conversations, because it's not going to work unless the client works.
Right.
And so, sometimes it does get frustrating. I had another lady where she threw a $3,000 party for her 10-year-old. And I was like, you're running in the negative every month. So you really can't afford this. So when I met with her, she had only got in maybe 1,000. So there was stuff that she could have let go. But she's like, oh no, I already told everybody I was going to do this and do that. And everybody's going to come. And, we got to have this person and we got to do this. And I was like, like
Right.
you hire me because you need me to help you get your finances in order. If you're not going to listen to what I'm saying, or you're not going to do the homework that I give you, then what am I here for? I'm not here to waste your money. That's the last thing I want to do. So, sometimes I do have those conversations, but it's quite interesting.
So yeah, I don't think I want your title. Tell you, I don't want that title. So Joe has something else to say.
So when you're meeting a client for the first time and you're putting out all the finances, did you actually look at like their income to debt ratio, and if they have no idea how to budget from the beginning and they're coming to you, so do you take all that in consideration and explain to them as far as I guess a lot of times it's just people living above their means, and how do you break that down to them, or how do you help someone to just starting out and have no idea, so they just come to you for the help?
Right. So a lot of what I do is teaching, because that's my heart, right? So I want to teach you what you've already done. So, some people come to me and they're like, I know I have student loans, but I don't know how much, or I don't, and I'm like, well, what kind of loan? Is it subsidized, unsubsidized, federal, private? What are we looking at? They're like, I don't know. So, so we'll sit there. Some people, they're like, I haven't paid on in years. I'm in delinquent status. They coming after my paycheck. That type of situation. So, what I like to do, so I do holistic financial planning. So we're looking at debt, we're looking at credit, we're looking at insurance, I don't sell insurance, just a disclaimer, but I'll tell you, if you're covered enough. And if you're not, then I'll tell you need to get X, Y, and Z. So insurance, I look at estate planning documents. So I look over wills, I look over power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, things like that, to make sure they're going to do what you want them to do. I look at retirement accounts, tax strategies. So if there's something that you could be doing that you're not doing, now I don't do taxes, but I can say, hey, maybe you want to bring this up to your tax professional because you might be missing out on some things here.
You're the real deal, Holyfield. You looking at everything. That's
everything, because it's so important, because one thing can interfere with another thing and can interfere with this thing. And all of those pieces work together. So it's important to look at them together. If not, you're not getting a whole picture.
Wow. Right. That's awesome.
So,
go ahead.
So when you have someone on a budget, and when do you have for them to like treat themselves? How do you put that in their budget? Because I know a lot of times doing a budget, people look at one budget, I can't do this, can't do that. So do you put that in play as you're setting up the budget, or?
Absolutely. I believe everybody needs to have a line item called fund money. Well, I call mine fund money. So fund money is, if I'm out and I see something I really like, I don't have it in my clothing budget, for instance, but I have it in fund money, then I can take it out of fund money. Or if I want to take the kids for ice cream, but I don't have any fast food money no more, or restaurant money, then I can take it out of fund money. So fund money is like your catch-all, whatever comes up during the month and you're like, I really want to do this. Then you look at your fund money and you're like, I can do this. And so that's another thing that I work with clients, is changing that budgeting mindset, because don't look at a budget as restricting you. because then you won't stick to it. Look at it as allowing you to do the things that you'd like to do. So, one quick story where this came into play with myself, because like I said, I'm very tight. I'm a tightwad. I'm very frugal. I don't like to spend money. So, so I was looking at my shoes one day. Now the bottom is coming off, so they talking, right? And I'm like, dang, I really don't want to spend money on those shoes. Like, I'm sure, I could wear these a little bit longer, this, and the other. And then something was like, Tiffany, your budget has a line item for clothing that you don't even use. Like, you haven't used it in a few months, maybe even a year now. Like, so you have that budget line item. It's there for these.
You got money sitting there and they ain't even using it.
Right. So I'm like, it's there for these instances. Like, this is why you built this into the budget. So when your shoes are talking, you can go get you some more. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy me some shoes. Now, of course, I use coupons and, I got them as cheap as possible. But I was able to get 2 pairs of shoes with my little clothing budget line item, and I could throw those old shoes away. So it allowed me to not feel like if I spend money on this, then my goal is going to be derailed. Or if I spend money on this, then I can't pay X amount on my debt anymore. I've already built all of that in. So me not spending that clothing budget, me spending that clothing budget is not going to hurt me at all when it comes to my goals because I've already allotted for that. So I try to get people to change their mindset around budgeting. It's not there to hinder you or prevent you from doing things. It's there to make sure that you can do more with your money. So,
yeah, I think for me, when I hear the word budget, it's like, oh, I can't spend money, and then I start and I stop, and so that's where it gets frustrating to me because I do good and I'll save, and I have some saved, but I end up going into that pot when I shouldn't, and then I get upset with myself. And so I guess it is a mindset, you know what I'm saying? I'm just so used to just like, I want what I want, you know?
Yeah, money is all about mindset. It's all about psychology. Money is all about psychology because
Yes.
that's the reason I'm such a tightwad as I am is because I saw what spending does. Like, my family, I grew up in a household where there were foreclosures and bankruptcies and credit card stacks like this high. And I saw what happened with that. So I'm like, okay, I want to be the complete opposite. And so now I'm so tight. Like, I didn't get a first credit card until I was like 20 something. So it's like internally, I've internalized that. And that's what makes me so cheap today. But granted, it's kind of a good habit to have, but still, it's just like, that's what formed that. And then also having my first son when I was 18. So I was pregnant when I was 17. And then also having to have my first car payment when I was 16. So like all of these different things kind of set me up to be the person that I am today.
That's awesome, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the credit part. I think for me, like me and Joe are paying off creditors now, trying to, get our credit score up, and Lord willing, praise God, hopefully we'll be ready to buy this time next year. And I've noticed that like some things that I have paid off, it's still on your credit report as paid, charged off. So can you kind of explain what that means? Like, because I know one of the ladies, somebody was trying to explain it to me. I can't remember what she said, but she was saying that it can still be on your credit for 7 years, even though you paid it off.
So it depends. Okay. So if you have something that hasn't been charged off, now charged off means that the creditor is taking less than what you owed them just to settle out of it. Or they charged it off on their books and then you don't pay anything. So then it comes up as a charge off, but a charge off is horrible for your credit because that means that you did not pay or you didn't meet the full obligation of your debt. So future creditors will look at that like, they're a little bit more risky, and that's why your credit score is lower. So you get how that all works together. So if you pay off a debt that's not a charge off, so let's say you just have a medical bill on there, it hasn't been charged off yet, it's just showing. You go ahead and pay that off. Within 30 to 60 days, it should fall off your credit report. Okay. And if it doesn't, you can dispute it. Now, if it's a charge off, I have heard that they can stay on there for 7 years, but what I would urge you to do, if that's the case, and you actually paid them the full amount, like if it was charged off and then you paid them the full amount, I would probably go ahead and dispute it with the credit reporting agencies, so Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and say this debt has been paid in full. This needs to be removed from my credit report. And a lot of the times when you dispute things, so what happens on the back end is once you dispute something, the reporting agencies go to the creditor and they're like, is this true? Is this not true? What evidence do you have to back this up? This is their claim, blah, blah, blah. And so if the creditor A doesn't respond, then it automatically goes in your favor. Or if they respond and say, you know what, they're right, they did pay it off, then it's going to go in your favor as well. Now, a lot of credit repair people, they say, well, just go and dispute everything. And it's kind of like throwing spaghetti and see what sticks, right? But me, I feel like if you had the debt, so I guess this goes back to like biblical principles, right? So I feel like if you had the debt and you definitely know you did, then you should pay that as being a good steward of your money because it's the right thing to do. And also, once you pay it, they can't come back and say you did it, or they can't come back and throw it back on there because a lot of times what happens as well is you dispute it, and then sometimes it might show right back up, maybe later on down the road, and that's why. So I feel like part of being a good steward over your money is to make sure that you pay your debts and make sure that everything is accounted for and you keep yourself accountable. Because another thing is if you're like, oh, I don't have to pay this debt because I'll just dispute it later on down maybe a few years from now, then you're not holding yourself accountable because you did do that. You did go to the hospital, or you did go to the doctor, or you did sign up for that credit card and do all that stuff. So I don't know, part of what I do in my practice and me helping people is we do tackle those creditors because I feel like it's important. Now, there's different ways we might do it, but we still do it.
So what about bankruptcy? I know that stays on 7 years. Now, I filed bankruptcy. It was out back in 2009. So it should be coming, I think it comes off next year. So what, say for instance, it does it automatically come off, or do you have to dispute that as well, the bankruptcy?
It should automatically come off, but they're humans just like us and they can make mistakes. So if you know for a fact it should be off, I would go ahead and file a dispute and just say, hey, X amount of years has passed, this should be removed. Right. And usually, they'll go through with it and you won't have to give them proof and, all this stuff. But just make sure that you do have the documentation just in case they come back and say, I don't think so. And you can be like, hey, this is what I have. So, yeah.
So I guess another thing that I saw on your Money Talk page as far as investments, what are some good things that couples can do or either singles can do to invest? I know I had saw with the stimulus check, you were talking about that, and just all around, like what is one of the big things that someone can do to invest in their money if they get a lump sum or.
Okay, so it always depends on the situation, but in general, I highly recommend that people start with their work retirement plan. So, like if you have a job somewhere and they offer 401k or 403b or 403a or any of those work plans, take advantage of them, especially if they match, because that is free money sitting there. And so, when I was in corporate in HR, the last company I worked for, they matched up to 6%. And there were people only putting in 2%, 3%, things like that. And I'm like, you are leaving 100% return on your money on the table. And you won't get that anywhere, not in the stock market, not in real estate, nowhere else. So that's why I tell people to always start with their work plans and fund that up to the match amount just to get that free money. Then, if you have extra money outside of that, then you can open up an individual account. You can either do an IRA, which is an individual retirement account, if you're saving for retirement, if that's your goal. If you just want to invest to invest, you can open up an individual account or a brokerage account. They're called different things. But with that, you can put money in, and I mean, you can open it with $0. And then as you get money, you can start putting it in. And then you have to pick, either stocks or mutual funds or exchange traded funds or bonds or however you want to build your portfolio. I recommend people, especially if they're starting out, to invest in mutual funds or exchange traded funds because mutual funds, let's say we're in the grocery store and I have my buggy and I'm shopping and I'm like, ooh, there goes Apple. Ooh, there goes Google. And I'm just throwing different companies in. That basket is the mutual fund. Now, you aren't particularly picking out what goes into the mutual fund. A fund manager is doing that. But you are buying that basket of stocks. So you're automatically diversified a little bit by doing that because they already have fractional shares of all these different companies in that one basket. And then you just buy the basket and then you don't have to do anything else. They automatically rebalance and do everything that they do on their end to make sure it matches the goal that you were signing up for. So there's hundreds of mutual funds available, and it's on all platforms. You can open with Charles Schwab, you can open with TD Ameritrade, you can open up with Fidelity, you can open up with Robinhood, all types of different platforms that you can start this with. And a lot of platforms are $0 to trade. So what that means is they don't charge commissions when you do trades like they used to. It used to be where, they might charge you $10 a trade. And so you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at your balance. But now it's $0 to trade. So you can buy, if you wanted to make your own portfolio instead of getting a mutual fund, you can buy Apple and Google and have all these different shares and not pay that extra commission to the brokerage. So that's a good thing. But there's so many, it's so many levels and depths to this, but I'm trying to keep it very simple.
Yeah.
So mutual funds and then exchange traded funds are similar to mutual funds, but they're typically a little higher. And then there's also index funds. So index funds follow an index. So I don't know if you all have heard of like the Dow Jones. Okay, or the Russell 3000, or some of these indexes. So index funds follow those indexes. So whatever stocks are in those buckets, they replicate it. So the thing about index funds, though, is you'll never do better than the market because it is the market.
Right.
So that's why I kind of recommend mutual funds because those have different allocations. I hope I didn't go too deep.
With ours at 401k, now they match up to 5%, but it depends on your age. You can go up to 22%, and you kind of pick what you want to put it in. Like they have a safe one, and then they have three other ones that is kind of like a higher risk, and the higher risk turns your money over, but it's with the stock market. It's going to go up and down. But that's what I try to tell my son. You got a 401k, if they whatever they match, if it's 5%, at least put 5% in. Because not like for mine, they match us 5%, but actually I have 22% going into mine because it's tax free. But the guy I work with, um, we really have a lot of free time, and he's really into the stock buying and selling, and so it's a lot of things that they teach you or show you because, like I say, growing up, our parents didn't know anything about that, and they didn't really teach us. And so, a lot of things with finances, we have to learn or research. And so, it's two guys that work that are really into it. So I just kind of listen. And like with our 401k, the guy that works with me, like he's lost like 30 some $1,000. But the other guy that I deal with, he was like, man, he said, change your funds and put it all into the safe. He said, I ain't telling you what to do, but it'll be a wise decision. So I changed mine, oh, about a year ago, but I never changed it back. So the guy was asking me, have you lost anything? And I'm like, no. I said, because I changed mine. And because I didn't want to take the risk. And this guy, like I said, the guy I work with, he's well off. I mean, he buys Apple like now since the market is doing kind of bad. That's all he do at work is just buy Apple and stuff like that because it's low. And he's like, yeah, it's gonna go down, but it's gonna go back up, and I'm gonna be fine because he's got a 10-unit apartment building, but he took the money out of his stock to pay off his building, and so now he's like, that's income coming in that I don't have to pay for anymore. So he uses his stock to his advantage. If he needs to sell something, instead of spending his own money, he just uses what he's invested. And that's what I try to tell mine at a young age, to do that, because when I was their age, it was so much stuff I didn't know till I got into my late 40s to learn a lot of this stuff. So.
And I mean, you said a mouthful right there. There was so many things that I wanted to hit on. But I think an important thing to mention is to be careful when it comes to drawing money out of your 401k or an IRA if you're not over, I think it's 65 and a half, because then you'll get penalized, and the government will start taking more of your money and things like that. So he said, "Uh-oh."
Because I mean, I work for the government, so it's different age groups where
Okay.
they're actually, like with us, they'll send us a thing. Hey, you can take this, and
Gotcha.
you don't get penalized and stuff like that if you want to. So it's um,
So
like I say, I don't know for other companies. I don't know, but I just know with mine, I just keep up with mine.
okay, so in general, in general, you'll get penalized. But it sounds like you may be referring to a pension plan. Is it a pension plan?
Well, it's our 401k is like a pension, but like at the age of 59, I can actually take out of my 401k and pay myself. If I want to pay myself weekly or monthly, I can do that. But see, I can also retire at the age of 56 with the government because I'll have like 21 years with the government.
Okay.
But I can't touch my 401k to the age of 59.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Okay. That sounds right. Yeah. So, let me see. Oh, so what makes a portfolio more risky is the weight in stocks. So you know how you said that you moved some of your money over to a different fund? That other fund probably had a lot of bonds, which are generally more safer than stocks. But with how the market is right now, even bonds are not really fruitful right now. So, what I've been telling people currently, like if you're investing, like if you are doing the 5% to your 401k or whatever you was already doing before this, keep doing it. But if you weren't, then go ahead and focus on paying off debt, because you putting your money towards debt is going to have a bigger payoff right now than putting it in the market in any form or fashion, whether it's stocks or bonds or whatever, you paying off debt is going to be a higher rate of return for you. Because when you think about it, let's say there's a credit card. I just looked at my APR on my credit card is 24%. So you're looking at 24% interest or 1% return, you know? So it's like, where do you put your money in that instance? I would rather go ahead and pay off the debt, and therefore I'm paying myself more, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So right now I'm telling people this is the season to pay off debt, stack, especially student loans, especially with the student loans, because with student loans, the government, you know, I don't know if you heard about that bill or whatever, but now there's no interest accruing on federal student loans, and
Yeah.
your whole payment goes straight to your principal. So you're knocking off that principal, which you like, this has never happened. Like, I wish I had all the money today to pay off my student loans, because I'm like, dang, like I'm missing out on a super opportunity right now. So, you know, paying off debt, stacking money, working on credit scores right now, because once this is all over with, fortunately, but unfortunately, people are going to lose their homes. They're going to lose their apartments. They're going to lose their cars, or they're going to be desperate to be selling their cars and homes and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity on the market, you know, after this is all over. So I'm telling people to use this time to save up down payments, to focus on fixing credit scores, all that stuff right now, especially when we home and we don't have nothing else to do. Like, you should be on the phone with creditors. You should be lowering your insurance. You should be making deals with different credit. Like, there's so many things that you could be doing right now that you can be hopping on while you're working from home. You can be in your meeting on your Zoom and you like put it on mute. Yeah. So you said you can make me, like, what interest rate can I go to? Okay. Like, you know. So now is the time, and especially because a lot of companies are doing coronavirus relief efforts. So not to take advantage of the situation, but to take advantage of the situation.
Hey, why not? Why not when you can? You know what I'm saying?
So like, you can get on phone with creditors now. So let's say my credit card company, I'm like, hey, you know, I was calling to see if I can get a lower interest rate for a few months because I really can't afford, you know, 24%. Can you do 15? And a lot of times they'll be like, sure. You know, it's just a matter of asking.
Right.
So
awesome. Awesome. You have anything else you want to say? So I think that I think we've answered asked all the questions on here. I know for us, you having, you know, small children, and they're not quite at, well, I don't know, yours might be, they might know all about the money thing and how to save, being that the mom's a money coach. So, you know, we have grandchildren, and I know there are some people on the couples page that have children or whatever. How would you say teach a young child how to start saving money? What would be like? Give me an example that you would, you know, show a child at a young age how to start saving money.
Okay, so I'll talk about what I do with my kids. So one thing that I make them do, you know, for instance, my youngest son got a lot of money for Easter. As part of his Easter basket and his Easter egg hunt. You know, they got the golden eggs, whatever. So I'm like, look, you need to spend some, save some, and give some. Everything has to go in one of those three, well, all of those baskets. At least something needs to be in every single one. So I don't care if you give $1, save 5, and spend 20. As long as there's something in all of those buckets, and then we can work on the importance of each thing. Because what you want to get in the habit of is not being selfish, like teaching kids to not be selfish. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and granted, I do put some limits. I'm like, you can't throw a penny in the give. Like, like what is that gonna do? But to teach them to not be selfish, to teach them that it's okay to spend some, and to teach them that you need to save. So they go into, those three buckets. Another thing that I do is I make it so that they have chores, and chores aren't paid, right? Because I knew where y'all thought where I was going with that, where they work to make money. No, chores aren't paid. That's part of your household responsibilities. What you do get paid for is your grades, because at the end of the day, that's your job in my mind. Your job is to get good grades and be in school and do the best that that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So when my little sister used to live with me, because she's I think she's 13 or 14 now. She used to live with me too. So I would be like, all right, let me see those report cards. I was doing, I think it was $20 for A's, 10 for B's, 5 for C's, and you don't get anything if you get below a C, because in the real world, you can't go to work and fail.
Right.
Because you'll get fired.
Right.
So I'm also teaching them that, you do have to work for what you make. It's not in the physical labor, it's in the smarts.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I was telling my oldest son, because his midterm came back last year. The end of last year. And it didn't look good. I think it was like a D on there. And I was like, do you know, when I was in my master's program, I could not make a D. I could only make C's or greater, or I would be kicked out the program. And I was like, if you're serious about going to college like you said you are, then this is unacceptable, because this is not going to fly in the real world. And then you're going to end up with a whole bunch of debt and not have anything to show for it. So at the end of the day, and I have these conversations with my kids, like a lot of people are scared to give them that real dose, but I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you said you want to go to college. This is the work you're gonna have to put in. Or you need to make sure that you go on a different route, maybe a trade or whatever. But this is what you told me. This was your goal. So I'm telling you how to get to your goal. So I don't reward anything less than a C, because that's how you're gonna get there.
Awesome.
And then there was one other point I was gonna make about that. And then if we find money, we have a family piggy bank. It's a fancy one where it has accounts all the money that you put in. So they enjoy that aspect too. So that might be something you want to look into for young kids, especially ones that can't count yet. Like my 5-year-old, he can't count money yet. So he likes putting it in and seeing, oh, we got $50 now, that type of thing. So any money that we find, and it's really sad because they'll be out at somebody else's house and they'd be like, oh, I found a dime, or oh, I found a penny. And I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing. But I'm like, just ask if you have it. But right. Another thing I do is, when we're in the grocery store, like I taught them from an early age, don't ask for nothing unless it has a sale sticker on it.
Right.
So so it's funny now because we'll be in the grocery store and they'll be like, Mommy, can we get this? It's on sale. They make sure they point that out because they know they have a better chance of getting it. But I taught them very early on, it wasn't like a don't look at nothing, don't touch nothing, we're not gonna get nothing. It was just like a
don't touch nothing, you ain't getting it.
It wasn't that. It was more of, if you see it and you want it, make sure it has a sale sticker, then ask me, and then I might consider it because it's on sale. So
that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I like that. Well, our time is up. Ms. Tiffany, we are so thankful that you came on to talk with us. I've learned a lot of things, especially about the credit. I'm gonna work on that. But we are so thankful that you came in, and I hope that people will join later and look at the video. So if you'll save it and put it on there for us, we appreciate you coming.
No problem.
TLC, please follow Tiffany Grant. It's Money Talk.
Yes, so
Money Talk Tiff.
I'll do my little plug. Um, so definitely follow me, Money Talk with Tiff. I'm on all social media, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tiffany Grant. Um, Also, I have a website, moneytalkwitht.com. A lot of the things I talked about here is all on the website. Now I am in the process of transferring stuff from my old website to my new website, so bear with me. But I usually do a Wednesday word of the week where I send out a different financial word. I explain what it is, why it's important, so you can get part of that newsletter. I have a podcast, Money Talk with Tiff, where I talk just like I'm talking now to different guests and things like that. So check that out. It's a lot of knowledge there. I mean, we talked about everything from divorce and money to kids to, active duty military. It just runs the gamut. So definitely tune in.
Well, we sure appreciate you guys, girl, and we thank you. So for now, we are going to sign off, and we hope you have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon. I know if we have any questions, I'm gonna chat with you.
Yeah, I'll be scrolling through the comments later on.
Thank you for coming on, and we appreciate you.
All right, bye bye.